Welcome back, my friends, to Healing Together and another episode in David and Sarah's life as they share how God showed up even in the difficult times. I hope you enjoy the story. If you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button for this episode. We would greatly appreciate that. Have a blessed day. Enjoy the story.
There's been a lot of things in our lives that have kind of built that faith, that we have the courage now to say yes when he presents those opportunities.
Yeah, certainly. And Sarah's been just a godsend to be, a partner with me as my wife and, just companion through all these struggles and adversity, even through, as we've known each other, the surgeries that I've had to go through for my eyesight. We had some struggles late in the 90s to where my eyes were having trouble again, and blood vessels were bursting and things like that in the eye, my good eye. And the current doctor locally here just couldn't keep things under control. And I didn't know what to do.
And he pretty much said, you just need to accept the fact that you're going to go blind.
Yeah, you have to accept.
And this was in 2002. So we'd only been married less than 10 years at that point.
8 years, yeah.
And I knew when I married him that he very well could lose his sight. Although at that point his vision had been stable for a few years. And so I really didn't think it would happen to us until we were much older. I kind of pictured us in our 70s with that's when he would, his eyesight would start deteriorating and we would have to face that. And I just never imagined that in our late 20s it would start. And then, in his 30s he would be battling, losing his sight. So that came much, much, much sooner than we ever thought. And really, just maybe naively, I thought it may never happen. So when it did, it was a hard, very, very hard hit, and something that we continually, were faced with that challenge, because the vision didn't go all at once. It happened over the course of at least 15 years. So we had the surgery in 2012. Once the local doctor said, pretty much 2002, you just need to accept the fact that you're going to go blind. And we said, no, we're not quite at that point yet. Not ready for that. So we researched the Cole Eye Institute at the Cleveland Clinic and made an appointment to go there.
Dr. Sears.
Can we back up?
Yeah.
Talk to me about where you guys were spiritually, dating and marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I'd gone to church, of course, my entire life, and I always believed. It was never a question for me. My faith was, I would say, easy. It probably didn't have a lot of depth to it. But I did know that when whoever I would marry, that I would want somebody who also believed. So even though there wasn't a ton of depth there, I knew inside that, I needed to be matched with somebody who would have the same faith. And so pretty much right away I started saying, you need to start coming to church with me.
Yeah, this part-time, going a couple times a month or whenever I could, wasn't going to work.
Yeah. So he jumped right in, and actually didn't get baptized until we had been married a few years. He was pretty resistant to it because to him he had been saved as a Catholic as a baby and baptized as a baby. And I just kept talking to him about he needed to make that personal decision as an adult, knowing, what he was doing and making that public declaration. And so we were married. Tyler had already been born, so
Yep.
I think we were married a couple of years.
Yeah, I think a good 5 years, 5-6 years before. I was stubborn during that time and no, I don't need to do this. I've already been. And I just didn't understand necessarily, what God's path was for me. I believed in God, believed in Jesus.
Yeah, we were going to church.
We were going to church.
But we hadn't faced anything all that difficult. So there
our
was
biggest
no
stress was the
reason to
grocery
kind of
store.
like deepen that faith.
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. But that baptism, though, well, first, when we were married, Sarah's grandfather, who was a minister,
Yeah.
was able to assist with the ceremony, and that meant a lot. To we were going to church at Harris Prairie Church of Christ at the time, and the pastor there was doing the ceremony, but then he allowed her grandfather actually to do part of the ceremony for us, and I think that meant a lot.
Oh, that meant, yeah, definitely
Tremendous.
meant a huge amount to me. And he had my grandpa was the one that had baptized me as well. So to have him baptize me and then marry us was a really special thing.
So yeah, God was already working on us both, but me as well. And yeah, I came to the decision that I really needed to, make that decision on my own as an adult. So it was
And I would say that was actually a big turning point, because it was shortly after that your vision started failing. Shortly after that baptism.
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, but that was all part of God's plan to continue to, I think, strengthen us in ways to get through that adversity. We didn't know what was going to happen. But
So we find ourselves driving to Cleveland
Yep.
more often than we ever thought we would be, making that trip over and over and over again. But like Dave has shared, I think, with you guys before, that the next 5 years after that surgery were the best years of vision of his life. We met this amazing doctor at the Cleveland Clinic who said, you should not have to go blind, and I think I can do a surgery on you that will prevent that from happening. And he, a couple weeks later, did that surgery. And when he woke up, the doctor did not expect Dave to be able to see anything but maybe a couple of fingers waving in front of him. And so we weren't anticipating anything huge when he took the bandages off. But I jokingly say it was kind of like a scene in a movie, because they're crowded around him, the nurses and the doctor, and they're peeling the bandages back. And then all of a sudden he says, "Hey, Dr. Sears, nice to finally see you." And he could see him.
That's exactly.
And
right.
it was like, oh my gosh,
And-
we just couldn't believe that
and
his
it was
vision had
amazing.
already gotten.
because before then, over those few years, right after I was baptized, those couple years, I would have things hemorrhaging, things happening where my vision was just cloudy. I was not having good vision at all.
Well, he could drive to work,
could still
and then he
drive,
would call me and say, "I can't drive home from work today,"
Yeah.
because the vessels would bleed. And
But to wake up from the surgery and see Dr. Sears and him talking with the nurses over me, looking down, and being able to say that to him and kind of laugh. And
Yeah.
It was just one of those moments that it's a God moment again.
yeah,
It's just a God moment. God gave this wonderful guy, this Dr. Sears, the talent and the skills to be able to do this type of surgery,
That's
and
awesome.
just to be able to see him. I think I even said I could even see the granule things on the top of the ceiling tiles. I could see so well.
Wow.
And for 5 years, he saw better than he ever had in his entire life.
Yeah, and Sarah would find me sitting outside.
Yeah, he would just lay in the grass and look up at the sky, watch the planes go by, look at the clouds. Tyler was in T-ball during that time, and so every practice, we didn't even miss a practice.
No.
Like, so we sat and watched him play, every single practice at every single game. And Dave was very intentional about making sure that he didn't miss anything. And I think I believe that somehow he knew that was not going to last, and he just wanted to make sure he memorized everything around him, and he never took that for granted. Like it was his top priority to experience everything that he could during that time.
That's true. I mean, even going back, my parents lived locally on a farm and had woods in the back, and we would definitely take times just to walk the farm, just to see the trees and the leaves and carve our heart into the tree back in the woods and our initials. And I mean, it was just an awesome time.
Yeah.
There's always stresses and everything, but those 5 years, that 5 years that God gave me, Dr. Sears helped me have, was just an amazing time.
Tyler was at a great age. He was, a toddler growing into this, little person, and it was just a really good time with him as well. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we were doing really well with my vision there for a while during those 5 years. But then you had
so in about 4 years into that, I got sick very suddenly and found myself in the hospital. It was early October of 2006, and I thought, I had the stomach flu, and I had been sick for 2 or 3 days here, and on the third day, it's like, I'm gonna call the doctor, because something just doesn't seem, it seemed like this is the worst stomach flu that could humanly be possible. And so I called, and the doctor, or the nurse, she called me back right away, and she's like, we're just going to have you go to the emergency room and have them do some blood work. We think, they can just take care of you faster there. We're not trying to make you scared or nervous or anything, but why don't you just head that way? So we headed that way, and about 3 or 4 hours into that, my doctor walked through the door, my family doctor, and he looked very somber, and he walked over to me, and he's like, something's not right. And he's like, your organs are shutting down. You're in kidney failure. We're going to have you drink some potassium here, because we're afraid your heart is like, my body was like depleted of everything that it needed. And so they started running scans and tests, and he's like, you're going to be here for at least a few days. And I stayed in the hospital here in town for 3 weeks until they transferred me to the University of Chicago for another couple of weeks, and came home because I was looking better on paper. They'd pumped me full of so many antibiotics, but I had an infection that was just raging through my body, and I was going septic, which is why everything was shutting down. So had I stayed home any longer and not gone to the emergency room, I'm not sure we would have had the outcome. But that started at, a 2.5 year battle of me being in and out of the hospital here and then in Chicago, and then also at the Cleveland Clinic, because the infection kept coming back over and over and over again. And then during that time, like in 2007, you had some glaucoma surgery because the pressure in his eye started spiking.
So my left eye, which was just so beautiful for the last 5 years, all of a sudden started to hemorrhage. And I was having issues with pressure. I'd be sitting at work, and then all of a sudden I'd see this yellow flashing in my left eye. And it was blood vessels just bursting and hemorrhaging going on. And my eye would instantly just clot up. And that's
so we got back with the Cleveland Clinic, the Cole Eye Institute, and hooked him up with a glaucoma doctor who put a tube in his eye to relieve the pressure. And that did really well for him. He had lost some vision because when the pressure rises in your eye, it puts this pressure on your optic nerve, and it kind of cuts off some of that blood flow. And so that's eventually what took Dave's vision was the pressure that had been placed on that optic nerve for such a long time with the glaucoma. So that you were kind of, your vision had been diminished, but it was
Yes.
still functional.
We were
And he was
getting it
still
treated a little
able
bit.
to drive. And then
I was taking you to
in 2000,
Chicago.
yeah, so he was actually still driving me back and forth to Chicago, which probably wasn't the best idea for him to be driving me back and forth. But yeah, we just kind of forged ahead. And then I had my final surgery in Cleveland after I'd gotten sick for the umpteenth time, and we're like, we need to find a different place to go and a different solution to this. So we found ourselves in Cleveland again. And I had my last surgery in April of 2009, which was successful, and they were able to completely repair everything that was.
The Cleveland Clinic was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a new procedure that they actually did to get rid of the
Yeah.
abscess.
So I ended up having a pelvic abscess.
in between.
Have no idea why it showed up when it showed up, but yeah, they did some internal skin grafting, tissue grafting, and were able to repair internally what was causing that infection. And then in October of 2009, so like 4 months after I was finally like well, and we were so happy things were finally looking like they were resolved, his eye pressure spiked again, and it was much worse this time. So we were back at the Cleveland Clinic for him that time, and
Right about
his old glaucoma doctor had left to go to another facility, and so we had a new glaucoma doctor who did surgery on him, and that was quite the experience that we didn't anticipate.
Yeah, and this was an interesting time. 2009, I would say, was a pivotal change in direction in a lot of ways for us, where God really spoke to us in multiple ways.
Yeah.
During that time, during 2009, spring of 2009, I had lost my job. And it was because the economic downturn, sales were really bad, and they phased out my whole division at the company I worked for, and didn't need a leader of the division anymore. So it was gone.
Sure.
It was gone. So I just remember at that time, and this was in March of 2009, calling Sara after it happened and saying, I'm really at peace with this. I'm at peace with this losing a job. And I didn't know why. I could only say, God's just given me peace about this. I have no clue why. And I was respected really well with the company. So, I mean, I was the kind of guy that I wanted to go say bye to everyone at the plants, everyone at corporate office. So they allowed me, even though they let me go, to walk and say goodbye to everyone I worked with. And I even agreed to actually come back over those next couple months and help train the people that were taking the pieces of my position over that, because they didn't replace me and they still had to take care of my customers and products and things like that. So I helped train those over those next 2 months for basically free, just to make sure the company did well. And I to this day, I couldn't blame them. I mean, I hated it to happen, to be let go from a position after 7 years, but I understood it, and I knew there was something else. It was just something else, and that's when I was actually diagnosed legally blind by that late summer. I think it was August.
It was August, yeah.
August
Of 2009.
And my doctor looked at me at the time, and Sara was with me.
And well, he said, at least you're not driving anymore. And I was sitting there knowing that he actually still was driving. You weren't driving after dark anymore at that point,
Right.
but you still were driving. And so I spared him scolding him in the doctor's office there, waited until we got outside. And I said, well, you understand you're not driving anymore, right?
Oh.
And then, the next day I'm at work and one of my neighbors sends me a text and she's like, I just wanted to say thank you again. Dave saved me today and took me up to get my car at the repair shop. And I was like, Dave did what? I said, he's not supposed to be driving anymore. And she's like, I never would have known. He did a great job. That was the last time you got behind the wheel, though.
Yeah, and I shouldn't have been. I just wanted to do this good deed, help someone out. But I couldn't see the traffic light colors anymore or, any of that kind of stuff. So it was a God thing that we got back okay. But that 2009 also, it was just a crazy.
It was crazy.
It was crazy.
So he lost his job. I had these final surgeries. He then
was offered a job.
To offer the job in the summertime to work at the church part-time.
To take over the children's ministry.
Yeah.
With another person.
Yeah. And then after that, we went to the doctor. You were declared legally blind and unable to drive. And then you had the surgery in October that went kind of haywire.
Well, that's where we're going to wrap it up for the day. And we hope you've enjoyed the story of David and Sara that they have shared today. Come back and join us again as they continue to share. If you have not, please do hit that subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. We love it. We're right at about 100 subscribers, and that's a fantastic start. Hit that like button if you would, and we look forward to seeing you next time as David and Sara share even more of their story with us. Thank you so much for stopping by.